Have you ever noticed how some people hold a strange kind of power? They don't raise their voices. They don't argue. They don't demand attention. They simply withdraw, and yet the entire atmosphere shifts. Suddenly, people grow uncertain. They chase, they question, they wonder what went wrong. It's almost as if silence itself becomes their leverage. Now imagine you tried the same thing. Imagine if you stopped reacting to everything the moment it happened. What would unfold if you chose silence over impulse, distance, over conflict? That's where the real shift begins. Because when you're no longer immediately available, emotionally, mentally, even physically, something unsettling happens to the people around you. They start to panic. They realize they've been relying on your reactions to keep control, to get validation, to maintain a predictable hold on you. But the second you remove yourself from that cycle, everything changes. Suddenly, those who thought they knew you realize they've only known your responses, not your essence. Carl Jung once said, "Everything that irritates us about others can lead us to a better understanding of ourselves." It's a statement that runs deeper than it first seems. Ask yourself, when you become distant, who starts to unravel, who pushes harder to provoke a reaction, who grows desperate in your absence. These aren't just surface behaviors, they reveal the ways you've been silently manipulated all along. See, most people aren't aware of how much they give away simply to keep the peace, to stay liked, to avoid abandonment. You keep saying yes when you want to scream no. You keep showing up, keep giving, keep offering yourself up as emotional currency for people who never truly valued you in the first place. And what do you get in return? Exhaustion. That vague, gnawing emptiness that doesn't quite make sense. Fatigue that feels deeper than tiredness. The reason you've been too available for people who don't deserve even a sliver of your attention, let alone the precious resource of your inner peace. This isn't about becoming cold or detached. It's about reclaiming your center. It's about learning what Jung called individuation, and the slow, intentional process of becoming whole, becoming authentic, becoming someone who no longer betrays themselves just to hold on to people who were never meant to stay. And that journey often starts with one simple, radical act: silence. A silence not born from fear or retreat, but from strength. A silence that says, "I no longer owe you my energy." So let me ask you directly, how much longer will you let your emotions be dictated by others? How long will you keep jumping every time someone pushes your buttons? How many more times will you hand over your peace just to avoid discomfort? Maybe it's time to pull back, to let people wonder, to become a mystery again. Because here's the truth, no one told you you were conditioned to believe your worth depended on your availability. Since childhood, you were taught to respond quickly to please, without question to sacrifice your needs for approval. But this isn't virtue. It's self-abandonment dressed as kindness. And here's where it gets even more dangerous. The more predictable you become, the less value people place on you. Predictability turns you into a tool, a solution for someone else's temporary needs. People start using you as their emotional reset button. They come to you for relief, for distraction, for comfort. And when they're done, they put you back on the shelf without a second thought. You don't see it happening because you're trapped in the illusion. The lie that says being endlessly available will make people love you, respect you, choose you. But it doesn't work like that. Carl Jung spoke of the persona, the mask we wear to gain acceptance. This mask convinces you to say, "I'm fine," when you're falling apart. It makes you answer texts when you're drained. It drives you to explain, justify, and over-explain, as if you owe the world endless access to your mind and heart. But the more you center others in your life, the more you vanish from your own story. Constant availability is a subtle, insidious form of self-betrayal. It's how you give away your energy under the guise of love, friendship, loyalty. But the cost is steep. You pay with your peace, your mental clarity, your emotional stability. Those who demand your attention constantly, they don't really want you. They want the comfort you bring, the validation, the distraction, the free therapy session. But the moment you set boundaries, the moment you step back, suddenly you're accused of changing, of being cold, of acting distant. It's not because you've done anything wrong. It's because you've stopped serving their needs. And here's a painful truth. The more available you are, the less people respect you. Because what is easy to get, what is always there, becomes invisible. People stop valuing what they don't have to work for. So pause for a moment and ask yourself, who actually deserves your time, your energy, your presence? Or maybe a better question, who deserves your absence? But before you answer, understand this. Your impulse to react, to please, to explain, it's not random. It's not weakness. It's rooted in something deeper. What Jung called psychic energy. And that's where we'll go next. Because your energy isn't infinite. And if you don't learn how to guard it, someone else will use it against you. If you've made it this far and this resonates with you, then stay with me for the next part. We're going to dig even deeper into how your energy is being drained without you realizing it, and how you can reclaim it starting today. Carl Jung didn't see the human mind as just some mechanical system reacting blindly to whatever life throws at it. No, to him, our psyche is more like a complex energy field. Every thought, every feeling, every little action takes from that energy. It's not infinite. It runs out. And the real question is, are you choosing where that energy goes, or are you letting other people and their chaos decide for you? Think about it. Every time you react without thinking, you're wasting energy. When you argue back to prove yourself right over something meaningless, when you try to justify yourself to someone who doesn't even respect you, when you keep showing up for people who clearly don't value your presence, you're draining your inner reserves. And Jung warned us, what you resist persists. The more you react, the more tangled up you become in situations and people that are quietly feeding off your attention. Here's the irony. People who feel chronically drained aren't necessarily weak. Most of the time, they're just misdirected. They've been scattering their energy everywhere, but within themselves. And when you're running on empty, you become vulnerable. Vulnerability isn't just emotional, it's energetic. People sense it. Manipulative people, opportunists, even those who don't consciously realize they're doing it, they pick up on it. They see you reacting to every comment, every demand, every tiny poke at your insecurities. And they use that because they know something you don't. You're not protecting your energy. You're leaving it exposed. And exposed energy is free energy for anyone who wants it. Jung believed that a healthy mind is one that knows how to contain energy. That means learning to say no without feeling guilty, staying silent without feeling weak, stepping back without needing to explain yourself to everyone who asks why. True strength isn't found in endless reactions. It's found in choice, in discernment, in knowing yourself so well that you recognize your own triggers before anyone else can pull them. How many sleepless nights have you spent replaying a conversation in your head, rehearsing what you could have said, analyzing why someone treated you poorly? That's energy leaking. That's your mind feeding ghosts that should have been laid to rest long ago. That's your spirit trapped in battles that exist only because you refuse to let them die. Psychic energy isn't just about willpower. It's your presence. It's the invisible force that people feel when you walk into a room. When your energy is guarded, you command respect without uttering a word. When it's scattered, you become easy to overlook, easy to manipulate, easy to use. The world, harsh as it sounds, has no mercy for people who give themselves away too easily. So start observing yourself. Where do you lose your center? What makes you react on impulse? What patterns keep repeating? Those are your weak spots. That's where your energy escapes. That's where your work begins. Not to become heartless or distant, but to become intentional. To reclaim sovereignty over yourself. One of Jung's deepest insights was this: when you conserve your energy, you break the projections others cast onto you. And that, my friend, makes people deeply uncomfortable. Because now you're stepping into territory they can't control. You're no longer predictable. You're no longer reacting on cue. That's when manipulation becomes visible. That's when you start to see how others have been feeding off your need to please, your fear of rejection, your habit of explaining yourself. But here's the thing, manipulators don't need to shout. They don't need to threaten. All they need to do is press the buttons you've left unguarded, and you've been reacting over and over without realizing you were being controlled. Jung called this projection. It's how people unload onto others what they refuse to confront within themselves. But there's a flip side. While others project onto you, you become their canvas. The more emotionally available you are, the more space you give them to paint their expectations, their insecurities, their demands, all over you. Think of that friend who only calls in a crisis. The partner who only seems to need you when their world's falling apart. The people who flatter you, but only when you're doing something for them. None of this is random. They're not connecting with the real you. They're engaging with the role you've been playing, the rescuer, the listener, the one who always picks up the phone. And why do you keep playing it? Because somewhere deep down, you're afraid. Afraid of letting people down. Afraid of not being loved. Afraid of being left behind. That's how manipulation thrives. Not in shouting matches, but in the silent guilt that convinces you to keep showing up, keep giving, keep sacrificing yourself, even when it's killing you inside. Here's the brutal truth. Manipulators don't need to hold you down. They just need you to keep reacting the same way you always have. But the second you stop, when you choose silence over explanation, withdrawal over justification, the game ends. The projections they've placed on you begin to fall apart. They no longer know who you are. And worse, they're forced to face who they are. Not everyone is ready for that. Your absence becomes a threat. Not because you're wrong, but because your silence forces others to confront their own emptiness. The quiet you offer becomes a mirror they can't escape. That's when they lash out, criticize, create drama. Not because you've changed, but because you've stopped being their convenient mirror. Jung said, "We do not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious." When you pull away, when you refuse to feed toxic cycles, you force the shadow to surface, not just theirs, but your own. It's uncomfortable. It's messy. But it's necessary. Are you prepared to be misunderstood for this? To be called distant, cold, selfish? Because that's part of reclaiming your energy. That's part of choosing peace over approval. It's in that silence, that space others can't fill, that a new kind of power is born. And that's where we'll go next. In the next part, you'll see why silence isn't weakness. It's one of the most powerful tools you have. It changes everything about how the world interacts with you. And once you master it, you'll never be controlled the same way again. The modern world is drowning in noise. Everyone's in a rush to be heard, to reply fast, to win arguments that don't even matter. People waste their energy trying to prove points to strangers on the internet, engaging in endless debates just to feel right for a fleeting moment. But there's a power, a quiet, rare power that few understand, and even fewer truly master. The power of silence. Not the silence of fear or retreat. Not the silence of submission. I'm talking about intentional, deliberate, razor-sharp silence. The kind that holds more weight than 1,000 carefully crafted sentences. The kind of silence that isn't absence, it's amplified presence. Jung didn't see silence as a void. He saw it as fertile soil, a space where transformation takes root. Because when you stop reacting, when you stop filling every moment with words and noise, you start seeing clearly. Patterns emerge. Manipulation reveals itself. Cycles of self-sabotage, once hidden beneath constant busyness, rise to the surface. Silence gives you clarity, and clarity is dangerous to those who thrive on keeping you confused. Have you noticed how unsettled people get when you don't respond right away? When you stop explaining yourself, when you vanish from the conversation? It's not because they miss you. It's because your silence takes away their control over the narrative. As long as you're speaking, you're still playing the game. But silence breaks the rules. And those who feed on your reactions, your anger, your defenses, your people-pleasing, they lose their grip on you the moment you stop participating. Real silence isn't passive. It's power. It's mastery over your own energy. It's the conscious refusal to let someone else's chaos dictate your peace. It's choosing to step away from battles that aren't worth your strength. Jung understood this deeply. He believed that individuation, the journey to becoming your truest self, requires this kind of distance. Because only in silence can you hear yourself without the world's interference. But don't romanticize it. Silence comes with a cost. It will separate you from people who only valued you for the role you played. It will make you incomprehensible to those who never really saw you, only the version of you that served their needs. It might make you look cold, detached, unkind. But that's not a reflection of you, it's a reflection of their discomfort with your boundaries. Here's the uncomfortable truth. The more you mature, the more selective you become with your words. Not because you're arrogant, but because you understand something others don't, that every sentence is an investment of energy. And not everyone deserves access to your truth. Sometimes silence isn't withdrawal. It's sovereignty. It's the language of those who no longer need to justify their existence to anyone. Silence makes people face themselves. It confronts them with their own insecurities, their own noise, their own emptiness. And that discomfort reveals more about them than any argument ever could. You don't owe anyone an explanation for your absence. Your absence explains itself. And the people who feel most threatened by it, they're often the ones who depended on your chaos to avoid confronting their own. But the most profound silence isn't the one that disturbs others. It's the one that reconstructs you from within. The silence that allows you to reconnect with yourself, with something deeper than external validation. That's the silence that begins to restore your energy. It's in that quiet, sacred space where you start to remember who you were before the world taught you to prioritize everyone else over yourself. And from there, something new begins to grow: discernment. The ability to choose where your energy goes, where it stays, and most importantly, where it should never be wasted again. If you're serious about protecting your energy, about setting boundaries, about reclaiming your inner peace, you need to understand this awareness isn't enough. You can't just nod along, agree intellectually, and then keep living the same way. Awareness without action is just another form of self-sabotage. Real transformation requires discipline, emotional discipline, the willingness to become consciously unavailable, not out of cruelty, but out of self-respect. It's about no longer being accessible to anyone at any time for any reason. It's about reclaiming authority over your own time, your own space, your own mental clarity, and it starts with the small things. Not replying immediately, taking a breath before reacting, walking away from conversations that are spiraling into chaos, turning off your phone without guilt, saying, "Not today," saying, "I'm not interested," saying, "I won't get involved." But above all else, it's about this: you don't owe anyone an explanation for your boundaries. You don't need to justify your silence. Your peace doesn't require permission. For many people, this is unforgivable, because when you stop explaining yourself, You strip them of the power to keep you trapped in their narrative. The one where you're always available, always accommodating, always putting yourself second. Jung understood this too. The path of individuation leads through isolation. Not a lonely, depressive isolation, but a sacred one. A period where you withdraw not to run away from the world, but to finally hear your own voice again. To rebuild your sense of self from your own center, not from the expectations of others. Want to know a clear sign that you're evolving? Pay attention to who starts distancing themselves when you become more reserved. Notice who tries to provoke you when you stop reacting. Observe who accuses you of changing when you finally begin to protect your peace. These aren't signs that you're doing something wrong. They're evidence that you've started to break free. At first, being unavailable feels uncomfortable. You'll battle guilt. You'll question yourself. You'll hear accusations of selfishness, of coldness. But this discomfort is part of the process. You've spent your whole life conditioned to believe your value lies in your availability. It's only natural that reclaiming yourself feels foreign at first. But conscious unavailability is the foundation of self-respect. When you say no to the world, you say yes to yourself. When you walk away from toxic spaces, you affirm that your peace is worth more than any fake connection. And when you stop explaining yourself, you start being respected, maybe not by everyone, but by the people who truly see your worth. Not everyone will understand this. Some people will mistake your distance for arrogance. They'll project their insecurities onto your silence. They'll accuse you of being harsh because they can no longer control your reactions. But this isn't your burden to carry, because here's what comes next: the rupture, the breaking away, the loneliness that feels like loss but is in truth liberation. You're not losing people. You're shedding attachments that were never real to begin with. And from that space of emptiness, something new is born. What comes after the silence? After the withdrawal? After the uncomfortable solitude, a rebirth, a new life, a version of you who no longer accepts emotional crumbs, who no longer plays games, who no longer trades authenticity for approval. You become whole, independent, at peace. And in that wholeness, you realize this being loved means nothing if it requires you to abandon yourself. True self-love begins when you finally choose yourself, even if that means walking alone for a while. So now ask yourself, are you ready to be misunderstood, rejected, even hated for choosing your peace? Are you prepared to pay the price of being authentically you? If this message speaks to you, leave a simple truth in the comments: I choose my peace. Let's see how many of us are truly ready to step into this next chapter. And if you found value here, keep watching the next video. What's coming is even more important than you realize. See you there.